Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are getting ready to move into our grand finals for the Collegiate Star League. My name is Fear Dragon, and I'm now joined by Zombie Grub. How was that other semifinal, Zombie Grub?
It was good. Unfortunately, I think the game plan for setting out the players was, was maybe a really good one, but it still came down to actually winning the respective games, and they just couldn't. So ending in a 3-1. Hopefully this one will go to the ace match.
Yeah, this is going to be a pretty interesting one as we now have our two powerhouse teams. This is the match that I think last year a lot of people were predicting was going to be the big grand finals until Montreal kind of threw a big wrench into that. But Montreal is not here anymore. We got Temple and we got Waterloo moving into that grand finals. What are your kind of thoughts on this match?
I was discussing with Joe before we headed off to a break after the last series, but I was talking about how cool storylines there are. There's the actual play where we have, I think you could argue that there's a bit more of a star-studded lineup, and versus a deeper overall roster of Waterloo. And then we talked a bit about the personalities. I think that both of these teams have kind of gotten credited for. Suppy being the sweetheart of StarCraft 2 scene, but then Buster throwing down Manor Mules. It's going to be interesting, and I see we got the lineup too. I want to just confirm that it's going to be a pretty cool one, as I think Temple StarCraft actually gave quite a... I feel like we could discuss a lot about their plans for their lineup, just the lineup, the way that they've set out the maps and the 2v2s.
Yeah, I feel as though this is, of the lineups that could have been submitted for either side, this is one of the lineups or the matchings that I feel like is the closest. This is kind of what we could hope for in the grand finals, because we got Tugboat, aka Heartbeat, facing off versus Kudralisk in the first match, and I think those two players probably going to be of relatively similar level. Then we got Tesla versus the Riddler, who I feel like are maybe close to being star players for either team. I think Temple could either say Tesla or Suppy. And then for the 2v2, we got Suppy and Centaurwa facing off against Buster and Locke, which should also be a fun one. And then the fourth game, which of course is the last one that we know the actual players for, is Suppy versus Buster, which should also be a really interesting one as well. Where the Riddler is the save for the ace, and I assume Tesla is save for the ace for Temple. So really, really cool lineups for this kind of situation.
Yeah. I was looking specifically at the 2v2. Sometimes the 2v2 can be the determining factor. I mean, it often is. It's the third game, so you're already on a potential last match for one team. It also just can be the how to say, the random, the wild card, right? Like, you can have a really good 2v2 team even if the rest of your 1v1 lineup doesn't work out as well as dependable. And to put Suppy in this position and also give him a 1v1 so he can't do the ace, leading out to, I'm guessing, Tesla, well, that's just... I feel like there's a lot to talk about with that. Like, are they just really confident in Tesla, or are they really hoping that Suppy takes game number 4 and 3 to give him the 3-1?
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised during the Waterloo series to see the Riddler go for that bio style as opposed to his very well-known mech style, and it didn't quite work out versus Krillman. But I still think it's something that you still, even after seeing that kind of attempt at the bio, you still expect it from the Riddler. So I wonder if it even just comes a little bit down to Suppy knowing the Riddler, or having at least had other people at his school tell him about the Riddler and how he plays, and saying, okay, well, I have only been playing and kind of getting back into form for the past 2 weeks. Is Suppy going to feel really good in that kind of late game situation? Or will someone like Tesla, who tries to make the game, I guess, blow up a lot earlier, going to have a better chance versus someone like the Riddler? I'm not sure. That might be part of the logic for that, and kind of saving Tesla there. So who knows?
Definitely some decent points. Do they actually? I feel like I knew this a while ago, but maybe I forgot. How are the players chosen? They're given the maps and then they list the players, don't they?
Yeah, they are given they're given the maps and then they're choosing the player. So you're right. I think what you're hinting at is that the maps are oftentimes very important. For example, our first map, Abiogenesis, very volatile map. It kind of makes sense that you may not want to send one of your big star players out on this map.
Well, yes, that is one of my points. But the other one is that I didn't think that Tesla would know he was facing the Riddler, or vice versa. Because that would come down to guessing where you would expect the Riddler to come out on, which I just checked. I would not have 100% guessed East. We'll talk more about that series as it's the one coming up after this. So let's get into this easy here on Abiogenesis.
All right, we're going to be starting up at the top left-hand corner of the map, top of the red Zerg player. Representing Temple University is Tugboat.
Ooh, Teen Hatch. Okay. In the bottom right, as the blue Zerg, his game name is Hudralisk. But I actually know his... Oh, okay, he's actually one of the few rare guys that actually just uses his name everywhere. Oh, I'm already so proud of this.
I know. Doesn't that make you happy?
It does. I just naturally expected them to have different lineups. Daddy Tugboat is Heartbeats, and the Riddler, I think, definitely has a different name. Buster has a different name. I just got used to it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll talk about the openings, actually, because this is starting off very quickly. Like you mentioned before, Tugboat is going to be going for the hatch first, and then going into his gas geyser and then his spawning pool, which is one of the usual more economic openings for a Zerg player in a ZVZ, whereas Kudralis going for a 13-12, I think it was, and then going into a Roach Warren. This may have even been earlier from the 13-12.
Oh, what? Yeah, these are both weird builds. I think Abiogenesis does play to this a lot. Like, even the very, very, very high, like, great pros of ZVZ play a little differently on this map, so it's not a surprise. But, you know, the 14 hatch often does lead to more aggressive openers, so it kind of gives this, especially depending on how you scout timing-wise, it can even be misconstrued as a regular game. So I would expect Daddy Tugboat to go for a Link Flood, but then Kujalis going for the 1 hatch Roach Warren, like that.
With a burrow?
Which one's better? I really, really, really feel like this is a bad build, to be honest. Like, I feel like it's. I know I'm already like giving this guy crap, but I feel like I've even played against this, and once you figure out what it is, and you're not just literally so shocked that you derp around, I think most things beat this build. I really do.
This is going to be so odd. Now, the roaches are moving out so quickly that even Ling's speed is not going to be finished. I think it might just be finishing around the time the roaches get to the natural, but I think even that's going to still need a little bit more time. But Roach Burrow, the main advantage here is that you can regenerate the hit points of these roaches as soon as they get a little bit low. And I guess that is kind of nice. If you think about it, the Lings don't kill the roaches super quickly. With the kind of openings that just happened, I actually think this might work out really, really well.
You might be right. Unfortunately, it's not a natural thing to suspect, but mass lings does work against roaches. So I want to kind of get that out there for really has never attributed or encountered this. The trick is the burrow. But as long as you do eventually get a spore crawler, but as long as you can actually stop these roaches from getting into the mineral line, then it's kind of like, do you really care that they have burrow?
Yeah, I mean, he might just be buying enough time. He is down. Tugboat is down 4 workers, but he has a hatchery at his natural. The problem is he's getting up so many of these lings that eventually the roaches, it doesn't matter if they unburrow 5 or 6 or 7 at a time. This is a 1-base roach player. He's not going to have overwhelming numbers to deal with the overwhelming numbers of lings.
Yeah, I think the potential here, though, is that the spore crawler comes down even later. Already, I think it's a little bit late. He probably should have stopped it on as soon as he saw that it was burrow. But like, what if someone really is so shocked that they even are delaying it further? Eventually, the trades of 8 roaches does start to work out better than lings surrounds. But now the spore crawler moving forward, he's going to actually start killing these roaches, which is a big difference. And maybe if you really want to play a safe game, you can also got a spine crawler, but...
Okay, well, he's diving on top of the roaches that are too far away from the spore crawler to actually reveal any of them. Remember, if he burrows that spore crawler close enough to any of the burrowed roaches, he can get on top of those roaches, and it doesn't matter if they can unburrow or not. They can't get away because they'll be surrounded at that point, so they have to be very careful now.
This is such a high number of roaches, though. You know, if he gets a spore crawler 15, 20 seconds earlier, there might be 4 more dead roaches than what there are now, and that means the lings still win. But as it is, no spine crawler either, and he just made 4 drones thinking that this is something he could laugh at. I think Daddy Tugboat might have underestimated this, and he's gonna tap out. GG.
Oh my god, Kudralis taking game number 1 with the super odd and unorthodox build. Really well done. What I also realized toward the later end of that is even if you see the burrowed roaches, they have a lower target priority than all of the unburrowed roaches. So in a weird way, even if they're burrowed in range of the spore crawler, it's very likely that your lings, if they're just on a regular attack move, they're going to go target the higher health roaches that are sitting way further back and ignore the burrowed one. If you want to target fire down the burrowed one, you have to do it with only a small segment of lings. It becomes very micro intensive to actually do that in such a small period of time.
Well, I did preface that engagement with if you know what to do against this.
Yeah.
And I would say that the squirt crawler was late, that the difference of 3 more roaches is a big deal when it's ling versus roaches. And he should have gotten a spine crawler. You talked about the drone count, and yeah, he was down. He had the hatchery. All he had to do was hold. It really wasn't all in. So just underestimating it a little bit too much.
Mm-hmm. Well, with Waterloo being able to take game number 1, that does put them up a game in this best of 5, which means they only need 2 more victories to actually claim the championship for the Collegiate Star League. And that does come with a decent amount of prize pool. But game number 2 is also going to be very important. Tesla versus the Riddler. In a weird way, I was talking about it, Temple has multiple sort of major star players in the form of both Tesla and Suppy, both with their own strengths and weaknesses. Tesla, I think, a little bit more in practice usually, but Suppy, I think, more well-renowned and maybe handles the pressure a little bit better. But the Riddler is also a very, very strong player in the CSL, so this is going to be a very, very important match for both teams.
I got to see Riddler play a really weird TVZ. Everyone expects him to play mech, right? Well, he did that, but after doing a 2-on-1, I wonder if he's going to have any weird starts to this TVP, as I do think he'll need one. Generally, someone's well known for their mech. Protoss is by far their worst matchup because mech can do well against Protoss. Sometimes it does really, really well. It's like Hitter Cell. Sometimes the Protoss players don't even know how to like beat mech, and they think it's Imba, right, or something like that. But generally, Protoss is their worst matchup. So they got to start things off kind of with a really either superbly greedy build on like Neva Square or something, or they got to go for a proxy and hope to kind of disturb the game. Or they have a secret good bio, but just generally speaking.
It's certainly, I feel like there's a lot that is going to come down to Tesla's reaction, because Tesla is also one of those players. First of all, everyone knows what the Riddler's main playstyle is. He can clearly try and go for some of these other bio mix-ups and everything, but his main playstyle is still going to be mech, and Tesla knows that. Tesla is also a player that has a large variety of builds under his belt as options, and he is a player that also likes to get tricky himself. He likes to throw out odd things. He likes to get very aggressive in his opponent's face more often than not. So I expect that the earlier and kind of mid-game stage is going to go with a lot of the pacing dictated by Tesla, and the later stage, if it gets to that, will be kind of the pacing dictated by the Riddler.
Well, I definitely agree with that. We're going to East Watch. In the bottom left, there's the red Protoss. He is Tesla.
And his opponent, up in the top right-hand corner of the map, we have our blue Terran player. It is the Riddler from Team University of Waterloo.
So I guess we didn't really touch too much on the map. Sometimes the map doesn't really determine a whole lot about the game, specific matchups, specific play styles, but usually touches a little bit on it. Well, I feel like in this matchup, I wouldn't say that it necessarily contributes one direction or another of how people play. I think it's a lot more interesting to watch like a Zerg abuse some of these strengths of this map, such as the gold base, such as the multiple counterattack opportunities and run buys. But TVP, especially in the way that you're describing how this is probably going to go, momentum first to Tesla on a bigger map, maybe it's a little bit of a disadvantage for him, but then, perhaps the Riddler goes for like the Super Turtle style later on in the game. This map could also be bad for that, as you really do get spread out as the game goes on, regardless if you're facing fast little Zerglings or a Warp.
Yeah, and we can already see that Tesla is being a little bit paranoid, because going back to the map, this is a very big map, and scouting around for some nice proxy locations, just because you never know. The Riddler is not afraid to throw out some cheeses here and there as well, alongside his kind of mech playstyle. So I like that Tesla is just scouting around and keeping an eye out for that. He also does spot out the reactor coming down before the command center.
Yeah. Okay. That's pretty quick. I don't know if that was a mistake or. Yeah. Usually. I'm starting to like second guess myself here. Yeah. But anyway, it's going into the factory. Okay. Because he didn't go for the Reaper, so he gets the reactor first. All right.
Yeah, I guess he can get up a couple of Marines or something with this,
Yeah.
and then eventually get up to Hellions, but he's going to be able to harass the SCVs on the low ground. This is the real problem when you don't get out any early Marines and you just build a reactor. You can't do anything about the harassing probe.
Yeah, it's kind of it's a weird trade-off though, funnily enough. The reactor does take a very long time, so it is by far a later reaction to the harassment probe, but the Reaper does take longer than Marines, so there's a bit of a middle ground. Like, they eventually pop out, as we see here. But yeah, I mean, obviously the biggest takeaway from the reactor open, there's no Reaper to scout at all. So you're guessing between, most importantly, Stargate versus Twilight, fast third base versus two base. And those are two very important things to know in this episode.
Oh, the probe gets into the main base and does scout out the timing on the starboard. Just confirms everything that I assume Tesla sort of had already probably guessed was going to happen. He saw the factory land on the reactor. He saw... Well, I guess he didn't see exactly what was coming out, and it is, in fact, not going to be Hellions. It is going to be Widow Mines instead.
So, oh man, I feel like...
Oh, he's going to spot the Widow Mines, though. With the Stalker,
Okay.
Gotta be careful
So
not to overcommit.
it is pretty nice that he sees that it's two Widow Mines. That confirms, of course, that the reactor swapped over and that he's going for Widow Mines. If you go for two Widow Mines off a reactor, generally you go for 4. Sometimes you go 2 Hellions, then 2 Widow Mines with a drop, but I think rarely you go for 2 Widow Mines, then 2 Hellions. But regardless, he should have a good idea. But what's kind of funny about this is that dealing with 4 Widow Mines versus dealing with 2 Widow Mines is borderline the same reaction. I mean, you pull away the probes and micro 4 back to choke the shots. It just has twice as much potential to deal damage.
Yeah, Tesla, by the way, we didn't quite see this on the stream, but he did lose one of his stalkers to a Widow Mine on the high ground. So a little bit unfortunate because he knew that the Widow Mines were there, but he just had a slightly late reaction on pulling back those stalkers. He's just trying to poke at those Marines. So unfortunate to lose one of those early stalkers. Has to warp in an extra one to make sure he has enough DPS to deal with those Widow Mines. But all the Widow Mines aren't exactly moving across the map or anything just yet. In fact, the medevac is out, but he burrows his Widow Mines over by the 3rd, getting ready to plant that down very quickly. The Riddler not exactly doing what you would traditionally see a Terran player do, who boosts out those Widow Mines with a reactor.
Yeah, I really thought he was going to go for a drop, being a medevac and all.
I guess if you, for him, his thought process may be, well, I want to just keep these Widow Mines alive for later on, because my opponent's probably already preparing for Widow Mine defense, which, in a sense, you can think of it like this. The Stargate was the opening. The Oracle's never actually moved across the map because he's just waiting for the Widow Mine drop right now. So, in a weird way, the Riddler is also not getting harassed by units he would normally get hit by.
I feel like the Riddler's kind of living up to his name right now. The Riddler, like, it really is he's being tricky. This should have been Tesla already with a base, maybe even like a 430 or much earlier Nexus. And instead, he really wanted to hard counter what he thought was great scouting. And it was great scouting. It was supposed to be something he could hard counter with Phoenixes and Revelation. But now just turns this awkward thing where he doesn't have anything to truly pressure a 3rd base. Oracles wouldn't count even if there weren't Widow Mines.
Oh, loses one of the Oracles. Oh no, he doesn't know that there's another Widow Mine there. Oh, loses a 2nd Oracle. He's gonna be able to kill both Widow Mines, but that is really painful.
He has 3 Oracles. He never went for any Phoenixes. So
Yeah. Oh.
It's the killbot method.
By the way, I wanna highlight something that Tesla did. Oh no, that is brutal. 3 Widow Mines, 3 Oracles. He gets all of them. He does at least get a Revelation off, but man, I like the way that Tesla at least did that. Minus the losing of the Oracles, the way that he fanned out his Oracles was checking along every single movement path to see, are you moving across the map? He's keeping an eye out and seeing how greedy he can play given his opponent's composition. Now that he has a Revelation down, he knows, probably has a decent sense of how aggressive his opponent can really be for a while.
Well, these Stalkers certainly should try and do something and see where the army might be positioning, if it's going for a simple walk through the middle of the map or a drop. They are going to catch the leftovers, which I think it's still very hard to tell, like, how big an army would be after someone opens up a reactor Widow Mines just to stop producing them. But tackling Marauder Medevac Widow Mine seems like it's not a job for Stalkers. This is really testing. He doesn't know how much more army there is behind this. And I don't think he did realize this is only like a 4th of the army. Double drops hit the 3rd base.
Yeah, he is losing a lot of stuff over by his own third base. Tesla needs to have some sort of reaction. He does pull his workers away, but he's been able to avoid a lot of the Widowmine shots using some really solid blink micro to avoid and dodge them, setting them off, then picking them off. Now the SCV's been pulled off the line. This is an odd base trade, but I feel like Tesla actually has more units back at home to defend.
Yeah, he does. He actually has a ton more stalkers, and his aggressive positioning. I feel like if a couple of those Widowmines got some pop-offs, this would have been a complete reversal, but instead the Widowmines were avoided or just blinked away from. Excellent micro coming out from Tesla, who's gonna dance his way to victory. And the Riddler, despite having a pretty good opener, yes, the drops weren't the great idea.
Oh man, and Tesla is a pretty rambunctious guy, so it's not exactly something I would put past him to go for the sort of slightly BM dance, but okay, well, hold that thought. I mean, the Stalkers have already done enough damage, so yes, he is starting to kind of run dry on his aggression, but he's already in such a good spot by this point.
The Riddler's Marauder count is growing once again. He went straight into like some pretty heavy Marauder production. So while the Widowmines are almost comical as an opener, the actual like backbone of the army wasn't that bad. It was just disconnected. If he had the army and the 2 medevacs along with his third base, I think that army does really well against the Stalkers. They have to choose to blink either for them, like to blink out of the Marauders, like when they're low, or to blink out of the Widowmine shots. But catching them at a pretty perfect time, and the Riddler just couldn't do as much damage.
I love that Tesla is saying at this point, you know, I don't need an observer. Like, I have the Oracle. I may have lost a couple of my Oracles. I have an Oracle. I don't need to have any sort of form of detection. I never need to get the Robo or anything. He's gonna catch the Riddler at an awkward moment when he's moving across the map, and it kind of made sense. The Riddler knew he had to get some damage done, so he kind of had to move across the map. But as soon as Tesla moves in over here, he can kill off a couple more things, and he can recall to defend whenever he really needs to.
Yeah. He could certainly lose his third base. Maybe if you use your natural as well, it's when you start getting a little bit nervous, but they do believe Tesla has got this game, and actually he still has the Stalkers to defend his third.
Wow. Yeah, he's gonna keep his third alive, and he also defeats his opponent. GG, Tesla ties up the series 1-1 in the star player match.
Okay. Yeah, tied series as expected though. Like Tesla is another. I mean, as you were saying, kind of like Suppy has the renown. He's just more of a one-known player, but Tesla is currently, I think, in form, consistently practicing. Versus just the very deep lineup of Temple or of Waterloo. Sorry.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with that. And now with the tied up situation, we are guaranteed to at least go to a game 4. So we are going to see Suppy play in that 1v1 against Buster. Buster, I think, is also a kind of underrated player who's actually pretty fairly good at StarCraft, I would say. So I'm really looking forward to that match as well. But before that, we're going to hop into that 2v2 where we're going to see Suppy and Centaurwa facing off against Buster and Locke. It's going to be a Terran versus a Zerg Terran. So we'll see you guys in a little bit with more collegiate Star League action as we get ready to go into Game 3 of the finals. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the grand finals of the Collegiate Star League. We are here getting ready to move into our 2 versus 2, the most team-oriented game of the entire best of 5. Zombie-Grub, how are you feeling about moving into this one?
How are you feeling, Fear Dragon? I'm tired of being the person that's just pinned in every opinion.
Okay, I'm feeling good because you were talking about this in the Waterloo 2v2, or the match that they played in the semifinals, where the map that we saw in the semifinals for 2v2, it's a little bit of a weird one. Overgrown Facility, which is the current 2v2 map that we're jumping into now, this is a lot more of a 2v2 map that you would imagine. It's not quite shared bases, but your bases are far closer to each other. There's a defendable area where you can both kind of make your stand against your opponent, and you have these back in-base natural expansions. We can talk more about the map in just a little bit as we go in to introduce the players. We're going to be starting down in the bottom left-hand side of the map, at the top of the teal Terran player. He is going to be Buster, representing Waterloo, alongside his teammate just above him, the yellow Terran player. It's Locke, who was the color blue before we started, and then he changed to yellow at the last second. We almost had blue versus red.
Darn it. On the top right for Temple, it is the red Zerg Suppy. And his partner in crime, Centerwall.
So we saw on the Waterloo 2v2 in the semifinals that they would just, both of the Terran players went for the 3 Rax Reaper. But you mentioned that had a lot potentially to do with the map. We do actually, okay, well, I was gonna ask you, do you think it still makes sense to do on this map? But we do see 2 more barracks being thrown down now.
Okay, all right. Well, I don't think you were wrong at all about your assessment talking about how this is so different than the semifinals very small map. But it looks like these guys just don't care about your assessment and are going to do what they would have done on Shrines of Lizul anyways, which is 3 racks their way to victory. It does honestly get harder and harder though. Like, I know sometimes you aren't really discouraged from doing a timing push on just because the map takes 5 seconds longer to get to your opponent's natural. That generally isn't enough to really attribute, but it can sometimes. I really feel like 3 Rax Reaper, when you don't proxy it especially, is one that does drastically negatively affect the people doing it if there's a big map. You also don't have as many Reaper hop-up spots, I think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. And in addition, it's just kind of at the base, actually, I don't want to say in addition, the base of this, the 3 Rax is good 2v2, it's good cheese, I guess, but, you know, it's honestly not the greatest build in it. So all these things combined, I don't know if I really like how Buster and Locke are open.
Okay, well, they have scouted out their opponents, so they know which race they're going to right now, and it looks like they've pinned in on maybe going over to Centaur Waz base first. Supply depots are down, so the SCV can also make its way forward. Oh, okay, a couple of the Reaper grenades going off, and it looks like Centaur Waz, I mean, pretty presumably, it was going to get overpowered with the overwhelming numbers since it's 2v1, but now the Lings start coming forward.
This is still a map where, and I think this is why 3 Rax is still something that is viable on here, where you're not connected with your partner. Not really. Your potential third bases are, but not your main. So you disconnect from your opponents. The Zerg player's too scared to go forward without speed, or they're the ones being attacked. Either way, it's 6-7 Reapers to just 1 player. I could still go right for the Reapers, but it is going to take them longer to rally through here. And they're up against, I mean, I think you could argue they're up against a better player. Suppy is certainly well-versed in dealing with pressure situations.
Yeah, and Suppy was playing a little bit during the kind of 3 Rax Reaper era, so he has experience dealing with the 3 Rax Reaper play. Even if it's been maybe a little while since he's probably experienced it in full effect. But Centerwall having that Cyclone out is also going to be something. You were talking about this before, and the last time we saw the 3 Rax or the 6 Rax Reaper from Waterloo. It is a really durable unit that you don't have to worry about microing nearly as much to kind of get its value out. And we've already kind of seen some of that effect coming into play. Ooh, I love the Banshee from Centaur Wa because this is just one of the most hard shutdowns. Your Reapers are invalid unless they get more damage done than my Banshee is doing to your Reapers.
Okay, all right, yeah. I think that's going for air here is obviously going to be the weakness of the 3 racks. Just in general, better tech is the weakness against any multiple racks openers in any matchup, 1v1, 2v2, TVT, whatever. So the Banshee ends up being, you know, the turret, and the Lings even get a pretty nice surround here.
Yeah, they pick off a decent number of Buster's Reapers, and I think that Centaur also moved across the map, signaling that Suppy and Centaur I should say Temple really wants to get aggressive. They pick off even more of the Reapers. The Banshee finishes off the one Reaper that got away, and then moves straight over to the main base with his only 4 Marines.
Okay, that is a problem. Reaper is still pretty good at getting behind enemy lines, and all the army of Suppy was across the map, and he's the best one to deal with this as quickly and effectively as possible. He does split half the Lings back, but unfortunately his Lings on the offensive are being denied just by the walls, and okay, yeah, Locke is going to go ahead and repair here.
Yeah, Locke is trying to deal some damage with these Reapers, and he's been able to delay that command center, sure, but the Banshee and the Lings come forward and are going to be able to chase those away. Meanwhile, Locke is doing minor amounts of damage. He's losing everything back at home, and this is going to very quickly become a 2v1 where Buster, who is still down in supply compared to Suppy and Centaur, might have to kind of hold off against both of them.
Okay, that's going to be quite the uphill battle. I mean, that's the ideal way to play 2v2 is just to segment one person off and kill them, cripple them, and then hope the other guy can't truly make a comeback. I don't know if Buster can. So Centaur definitely crippled. Lings even still left over to try and take away whatever buildings they can. And Buster now has to make the tough decision, the tough call. Like, is he going to try and help him? Is he going to just take all his money and his bases later on, or what?
Yeah, at least Locke still has that single command center that's mining over at the natural, or the in-base natural for a moment. So 1 SCV of mineral income, no, that's going to get shut down by the Lings as well. And the constant rally across the map for Centaur and Suppy really does appear like they want to start finally breaking into Buster's main base soon.
Well, things are looking very good for Temple. Buster does have some potential to get some crucial damage done with his initial couple of medevacs, but eventually Suppy will get into Hydras, maybe a couple of Core Crawlers, and Centaur Wall. I mean, he could just continue making Banshees, actually, continue to targeting the harassment mineral lines. Or just using them for a straight-up fight, tear them a bunker.
There is a scan available, but he only has 1 scan available, and the bunker goes down. And so do all the defenses at the front, because now there's even a siege tank over there. There's a single missile turret that can detect these Banshees, or I guess 2 missile turrets, but none of the SCVs are even mining in the main base anymore. Honestly, Zombie Grub, I feel like Centaur and Suppy have pretty much locked down this game with the kind of busting to the front. And remember that Suppy is also going to be able to play in that game 4, and a lot of people would give favoritism to Suppy in that game 4 versus Buster. So that could potentially just be the path to victory right now for Temple.
I think that it really is. It turns out that their plan here has really worked out well. I think they got quite fortunate, as I understand it, that it was Tesla versus the Riddler, and the plan is send out Suppy for the potentially remaining 2 games. I guess there could be that ace match. Seems to be a good one.
Well, Temple's going to be feeling really good right now, and Waterloo just doesn't have any of the momentum in their favor. But Buster has been shown to be a fairly solid player. Can he pull off a bit of an upset? Because it is still going to be an upset. As good of a player as I think he is, it is still Suppy he's going to be going up against. And that is going to be a very important match, because this is everything on the line now. This is no longer about getting a better score to get out of your group in a higher seed, or, you know, making it further into the playoffs. This is about winning the Collegiate Star League or coming in 2nd place.
Oh, this is... I feel like this is actually looking even like almost like a slam dunk, right, for Temple. So it would really suck for Waterloo to get 2nd place again, but I guess they're both kind of fighting for the finally getting a championship. So like either one would be a cool story.
Yeah, I think they've both kind of been in that position. And it's also worth noting that 1st place is $4,000 and 2nd place is $2,000, which is still a pretty substantial amount of money, but pretty sure everybody would like the double the number over there, $4,000 to walk away with. I know Tesla was talking about this in his semifinals match, just saying, you know what, just give me my, I think he said something like, give me my money in the bills or something, my $1,000 now. It's already locked in.
Confident words there.
Oh, at this point, I feel like they have a reason to be confident. They're up 2-1. They're 1 game away from locking it down.
Yeah, with their... Well, one of their aces anyway is looking to be heavily favored against Buster. What is the map here?
It's gonna be
Blackpink.
Blackpink. Yeah. Yeah, really impressive just out of Temple in general, because last year they did have a slightly different lineup as well. Suppy wasn't a part of their lineup. Instead, they had Raze, who was another really solid Terran player as opposed to a Zerg player like Suppy. And they were able to make these deep runs, and they still had a very similar feel to their lineup where they had these multiple star players in the form of Tesla and Raze, a kind of tag team duo. And they were able to get so far, and a lot of people really thought they were going to be able to make the distance, but it's this year that they've finally been able to kind of pull everything together. No shots fired at Raze.
Oh wow.
Raze left, and they've got to the they might win this. Wow. No.
That's exactly what you were saying.
Just
kind of
kidding.
it's pretty nice for them to be able to grab Suppy like they did as their other star player, I guess, left. With Suppy not actually attending the school but being close, like literally in proximity. So I think that's like the rules of CSL. That was quite fortunate for them. It's like perfect timing.
Yeah, it's for those who are wondering the exact ruling on that, it's close in proximity, but he's also attending, I think, a school that is somewhat related to Temple or something like that, because it's close in proximity and it's also like related or something.
It's like I don't remember what it is either. I don't remember how to be related. I was reading it on the preview, but it's something like basically if you can't, like, Suppy couldn't join a team because there'd be no team at such a small school that he's attending, but there is a team at Temple, so he gets to be brought in, which I think is actually really good that they have that, because there are going to be a lot of college teams. Like if I was in college, the college that I went to when I went, and I would not be able to grab 4 other StarCraft. I wouldn't be able to grab one other StarCraft player. But if I could attend, if I could join with George Mason, which is around me, then I think we'd actually have a decent team, right?
Yeah, I think so. Like there are a lot of schools like that I think can benefit from those kind of rules. Absolutely. I remember when I was playing in collegiate Star League back in my day in 2012. I remember there was a player that was at a not a super close school, but it was a relatively close like school that was kind of I can't remember what the term is. It's a school that's related to our school, but it's technically a different university. It's affiliated or something.
Sure, something like that, yeah.
But regardless, we had a player that was really good. He was, I think in today's standards, he'd be maybe like Masters 1 or 2 or something. He was a really, really solid player, but couldn't play because different schools. So I think that Collegiate Star League has kind of adapted and moved on with, or like, I guess, taken those kind of situations and found a way to allow those players to also participate in the Collegiate Star League, which is really awesome. So I'm sure Suppy is very, very thankful for that. And right now, I'm sure Waterloo is like, okay, well, damn, well, we got to take this guy out now. We got no choice.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough. Suppy, no matter, it's like, I feel like it's almost not sad. It's not what I'm looking for, but like disappointing as someone who like never really got to be that pro GM. When you watch these professional, ex-professional, now still GM players that don't play super seriously, but because they were literally so good back in the day, they can come back rather quickly. They have all of the habits that they learned over the years, the mentality they learned over the years still comes back, and you still fear them, even if you think you've been practicing like twice as much. It's still like, oh shit, it's Suppy.
Yeah, that's the oh shit, it's Suppy is still, I think, very much the exact sentiment that's going to be going through a lot of Waterloo's mind right now. But we have up here in the top right, it is that player, the man that we've been talking about. It is Suppy, representing good old Temple University.
And in the bottom left, as the blue Terran for Waterloo, it is Buster.
Now, a lot of the players from Waterloo, they have I don't know what to call it, a meme going on where they all name themselves the same thing. They all name themselves Avilo, whatever that thing, whatever an Avilo is. And they all like to play, or are all capable of at least playing some variant of a mech style. So I wouldn't say that Buster is as, I don't want to say pinholed, because the Riddler has clearly shown that he wants to at least try playing some non-mech styles. He went for Bio, one of his games today. But I would say Buster is one of the players that I have seen a lot more Bio, compared, like, in ratio-wise, compared to someone like, say, the Riddler. But he has also got a pretty strong mech style, I believe.
I think you're right. Unfortunately, like as I said in the last series, like Buster's his name I feel I've seen even for like years, but definitely a lot of the games I got to cast were of Waterloo, just coincidentally. So I do recall him having some pretty solid mech play, but also pretty solid bio play. It's just whenever there's a decent Terran that doesn't rely on just two-axing or a cheesy gimmicky style of play, I always like remember them more so than the other races. Hashtag Terran bias, but also legitimately there's just fewer like foreign Terrans, okay? It's all about Korean Terrans.
Yeah, you don't usually get too many people to cheer for in the foreign scene. They're really strong Terran players, but funny enough that you mentioned that. I do feel like Mech has just become so much stronger in the matchup and stuff lately for TVZ. So Buster might be able to make that work. I think that his style is a little bit more of an aggressive mech as opposed to a more defensive mech that someone like the Riddler would play. And I do wonder, is Suppy going to have as much experience for that? Because again, Suppy is the player that you kind of hinted and mentioned this before. He isn't the player that's playing every single week and every day he's playing and grinding out a bunch of StarCraft. He's the player that says, okay, I have something to play for. I'm going to go spend a week or 2 weeks getting back in form and getting back into the swing of things and learning what's going on in the meta and everything. But that sometimes does leave a lot of holes in your play and maybe less experience in things that you might not encounter as much.
Right. There is definitely something to be said about just the amount of games played. You might know what a hellbat timing is with Banshee, but you don't realize that you need to make an extra Overlord sooner to accommodate. Like, it's something very, very small like that, right?
Yeah.
Fortunately, I do feel like this matchup is one of the most solid ones. Like neither the Zerg or the Terrans are overwhelmed with complaints about it. The pro level, all the way down to bronze level. It's just usually a fun matchup for both parties, but Mech definitely is kind of on the forefront of everyone's mind about being the more complicated issue. Looks like we won't have to worry about that though, as we have Stim.
Okay, well, the Reaper is moving forward. It's able to evade some of these speedlings. The Reaper coming in after the speed is already done does kind of complicate things a little bit since can't really get too much done. And even the Queens immediately pop that off, but he does scout out the Baneling Nest at least. It's also worth noting that earlier while we were talking, Suppy was able to pick off 2 early SCVs for Buster, which it's not the end of the world, but it certainly is not a great feeling to lose those SCVs that early on. Hellions going to be coming out behind this for Buster, but he's getting up Stim. He's going into that bio play. So all the kind of stuff that we were talking about with Mech, it's a possibility for something that Buster can throw out that Suppy has to be aware of. But Suppy is going to move in with the Overlord, and he's going to see the tech lab on the barracks with it, I believe. Yeah, okay. Pretty sure he did.
Yep. Seeing that it's already literally 3 Marines could also be a tell.
Yeah.
It's very, very small, but it actually can be. Yeah, I think he's going to assume that was a barracks also on the tech lab. Saw multiple of them. So now Suppy knows that's, well, usually with a 3cc build, it's the first 2 medevacs are pushed off a little bit, but funnily enough, Buster went for a single medevac and loaded up with 4 Hellions. So not a typical Hellion drop timing whatsoever. And it's such an odd time that Suppy doesn't have a lot of units, but if he sees it, then the Queen still can deal with it.
Yeah, 7 Queens is the main defense force here. And he is moving into the main base now with a lot of those Queens, so he will have them relatively close by. The Lings are in large enough numbers to at least push back 4 or so Hellions. And there's not really any other Hellions moving into the 3rd at the same time or anything. This is maybe a little bit too early for him to have that number of Hellions. So it doesn't seem like it's going to be all that effective of a harassment force.
No. But I guess he wasn't really expecting to do very much. If this hits a minute earlier with more of a standard, focus on that as a build order, less so than a kind of, I don't even know what to call this, like something to be different. I think you do want a little bit more, but this was a little odd, and in general, Hellions can be tricky to guarantee drone damage. A single link touches them, and suddenly they have the worst fire in the world.
All right, well, Suppy's going to get up those 1/1 upgrades on melee and carapace, and since he had the Banelings, it kind of makes sense to go for those melee upgrades. He's going to be committing into that. As the lair also finishes up, he's going to have access to a lot of that other tech, potentially going into... I know we've seen some Zerg players going to the, Lingbane Hydra and stuff. I think that's what I usually end up seeing Suppy go for, but it It's always interesting seeing coming back after a break. So I never am 100% sure what he's going to be doing.
Yeah, I think somebody's gonna go for Hydralisks.
Yeah.
I think he has a lot of people he can talk to basically ask like what's the strongest playstyle right now, and I never. Oh, okay, we're wrong. It's Spire, but oh no, it
He
isn't.
cancels it.
Okay. Anyways, I never really attributed Suppy with mutas, to be honest, but that's a discussion for later as we do the push. Some Banelings are already prepared. I think it's enough Banelings.
Oh, yeah, that's plenty of Banelings. And even if they don't have Baneling speed on creep, they clear up all the Hellbats. But, okay, he has a couple more Banelings still left over, but there are still a lot of Marines left over.
Yeah. I mean, this is a 2-base push. This was definitely more Marines than Suppy or even like I expected. Suddenly there was 10, 15 more rallied down the middle of the map, and he really wants to have typical hooks to make sure that he holds this. He's going to just rely on the drones around, but good target fire from Buster. Still has to keep stimming against a lot of queens, and it looks like Suppy will eventually hold.
Yeah, he's target firing down all the medevacs. I think he's killed off 3-4 medevacs during all of that, and that suddenly is the kind of driving force that he needs to push his opponent back. Yes, he lost 15 drones, but you were mentioning this is a 2-base push from Buster, and Suppy has a 4th on the way and still is leading up 12 workers after losing 15.
That was a very scary moment, and if there were tanks included with that, then it's, it might just be game over right then and there. But he went for like a Hellbat version. It's more mobile, it hits a little bit faster, you don't have to worry about sieging up, and it almost had enough of a surprise factor to kill Suppy. But good idea with the drones, good idea with target firing the medevacs. Eventually this sim would be the ultimate contributing factor to the death of that army, and yeah, with Suppy 4 bases, he does need a drone a little bit more. It looks like he canceled it because he saw the push on the way, by the way. He's going to go for Spire.
Yeah, and that totally makes sense. He wanted the extra gas for some additional Banelings, which he definitely is going to need, but now he doesn't have quite as much creep spread to work with, but Baneling speed is finished up. He has a much better chance of getting some of those good Baneling hits off, since the hatchery itself just provides some of the immediate creep that he's going to need to close the distance.
I don't know if I like the Spire in general, but it is like, there's only so much analysis to be done because this push is still very, very scary. The queen count's so high, however, that once again, this could be a situation where just a handful more lings might be enough, but that's out of hatchery is targeted down.
Yeah, the Banelings are also still getting target fire down. Suppy has a couple of queens with high energy that can transfuse. He's transfusing away. The medevacs are still getting picked off, but the queens are all going down. A couple of Banelings come rolling in, and he does target fire down some of them, but not all of them.
Wow. Crazy how much difference the one Baneling just made right there. That could have been game over. The queens were finally being taken down. No more fodder for them. They were added transfuses. Oh, but those Banelings barely finding them too. It looks like he realized he had a couple extra at the last second. Probably thankful for that. Now Spire is done, but he can't really use it. I mean, it's not like he's using a Hydra Sen anymore, but I feel like the Hydra just a little bit. They're sturdier. They're not very sturdy. They're still glass cannons, but they're sturdier than mutas.
I think the hardest part about this right now is Suppy is uncertain if there's going to be another major push out immediately, or if he has the extra, I want to say 10 to 15 seconds to throw out maybe 5 to 10 mutas and start getting a little bit more aggressive, or even just have them available to do something like target fire down some of those medevacs and these liberators that are coming out. And now he's going to have invested a ton of that gas and all those minerals into more Banelings, and they may be useful, but they may not in this situation.
The surround could be coming down. This is pretty good. This is exactly this is what Suppy wanted to do with the last fight, though. So even though this is finally looking like he's going to be able to take a breather after this, we do have to consider that Buster is able to get a saturated third base. The biggest downside to this for Buster is probably the upgrades. He's down a full 1-1 upgrades, but he's even on his way to a 4th base. He still has a strong rallied army, and Suppy doesn't have that tier 2 tech. He doesn't have the mutas or hydras, and he probably won't have them for quite some time.
Yeah, it's interesting too because he has the Spire. He's just been so busy investing all of his, it's mostly his minerals, because he has 1,000 gas right now, Zombie Grub. He just has not had the minerals to actually get out any additional units. He's been using them on Lings and Banelings, and he is going to finally clean up this force with a lot left over, which I think is the first time he's been able to push this back and still have Banelings and Lings to spare. So with that, he's finally going to be able to make some mutas and get on the counteroffensive.
I feel like even saving those last 2 queens, they're like on such low health, is a pretty big deal. That's, 2 more injects, maybe one of them spreads creep because he does need that. He has to be constantly worried about how strong Buster's pushes can be. But now, after 2 very solid cleanups, I think Buster's got to go into the more normal TVZ as we know it. Rally pushes have kind of died out for the most part. So now we're into that era of stage of Now you start dropping. Now you start accumulating just a big army, probably go into tanks. Or what mine's point is not Hellbats. Hellbats just aren't very good things to have the later TDZ goes.
Ooh, an interesting wall up at that natural for Buster. It does allow a couple of these lings into the natural. Suppy gonna try and get some damage done on those SCVs, maybe finding a worker kill or two, if that. But Buster seems to have a pretty quick cleanup. It's the mutas that I'm really looking forward to seeing how much damage they're going to be able to do, because a decent number of Liberators can push back mutas, but there's only 2 out right now.
I think you have to get up to even 4 before you're really like, oh yeah, Liberators are good, they get splash. They're so bad versus mutas now. And they're pretty hefty losses against mutas, because they usually don't take any of them out.
Yep. Liberators end up falling. 1 muta ends up falling for the cost of it, but Suppy's also keeping his opponent more at home and guaranteeing that there's no more of those kind of continuous rally push-ins that were keeping him so pinned back. So now Suppy has a lot more breathing room. He has a 5th base on the way. He's resaturating that 3rd base and continue to put some pressure on as he scouts out a 4th.
And now we can talk about some of the strengths of mutas. There's definitely a reason these have mostly fallen out, but they still have their strengths. And when you get momentum back as the Zerg player, that is when they're strongest. Just denying bases, denying SCVs, and constantly patrolling for drops and pushes. Suppy is going to have control over this game now, but Buster could potentially get to the better army. Not even loses it right here, though.
Okay, he's focus firing down these Banelings really, really well. Now he's starting to split up his units, but there's just so much Zerg here. There's the GG Mule as Suppy closes it out for Temple University. 3-1. They take the championship home, Zombie Grub.
But you got to give a lot of credit to Buster. I think a lot of people did think Suppy was going to take it, just like even a hands down statement. But Buster got so close. I really feel like 2 less queens, those last 2 banelings that connected, those aren't there, and Buster's push does work. So it was almost the best way to get to the ace match. It's unfortunate, but well, unfortunate for one team, great for the other, great for Temple, finally grabbing that championship.
Yeah, finally grabbing that coveted championship that has sort of eluded them for a while now. But yeah, I completely agree. Also, hands up for all of the Waterloo players. They all played really, really well, and I couldn't agree more. Buster, I think there are 5 different things. Like, if you changed any one of those 5 things that Suppy did really, really well, that I think were almost unexpected of him to do so well, any one of those 5 things changed, I think Buster wins that game. But Suppy just did everything perfectly to handle that in the end after everything was kind of barreling down his throat. But congratulations again to Temple. They're going to walk away with a $4,000 prize pool. And of course, Waterloo still going to walk away with a solid $2,000. And our 3rd and 4th place prize of $1,000 still goes to University of Illinois, as well as, of course, it was RPI with Jon Snow, of course. How can I forget?
Yeah, either one cast then.
Yeah.
Still some pretty nice change. Even split 5 ways. Well, 6 ways. What's the base number of players that are necessary? 6? It's 5.
I think you only technically, because you need the 2v2. Yeah. It's a pretty low number, actually, that you need, because you can repeat people for the 2v2.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, so I guess that does make sense then.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's even better, right? I was going to say between 6 people, so pretty good. Between 4 people, that's even better for some of these teams. But yeah, awesome stuff. CSL continues to be a really just great, it's no longer an initiative. I mean, CSL's been around for a long time, but a strong
few years, like maybe 10
years, like probably
10, 12, 13, 14 years, something like that.
But it's a like a really awesome foundation. Just getting like collegiate esports that's an awesome initiative. But that does it for this season. This is a long, grueling season. The top 4 gets money, and that's all well and good as we're here in the semifinal.
Top 8, actually. The top 8, the 5th through 8th. I didn't mention this because
4-2-1.
5th through 8th actually get $500 as well. It's a total $10,000 prize pool. Yes.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're right. Like that math you didn't add up to 10,000. Yeah. Okay, so top 8, but still, as long as the seasons are played, like it's kind of a grueling year of playing. But I hope that's it does for next year. StarCraft 2 in college could be really, really cool.
Yeah. Collegiate StarCraft is really awesome. It's a lot of the reason why I even got super invested in StarCraft and why I'm able to here casting today because I just loved my old CSL team that horribly died immediately after I left, unfortunately. Because
Womp womp.
people, it turns out in Indiana, it's really cold and people don't want to go outside to go to a computer lab to play StarCraft. So I have so much love and respect to all of the Collegiate Star League teams that do manage to stick together and have those teams and come up with the practice schedules and everything and get people together to play in these games and build those awesome communities. So much love to those teams, much love to the Collegiate Star League, and yeah, thanks so much for tuning in, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you had a wonderful, wonderful year, and we're looking forward to seeing you guys next year, hopefully, for the Collegiate Star League.